If you guys are just joining, thank you again. We're going to get started here in a few minutes, just waiting for a few people to load in. But again, we'll be getting started here in a few minutes. Thanks. All right, guys. Again, thank you for joining. Just before we get started here real quick, just want to make sure the mic works and everything. Looks like it's good. We've had a few technical difficulties in the past. But it looks good. Okay. Good deal. Any questions that you guys have once I'm done or even during, send them through the chat and on YouTube if you can. If you can't access that, you can shoot me a question on Facebook. I'll do my best to go ahead and do that and answer that on Facebook as well. Yes, Ryan. It was a little countryish. Okay, guys, we're going to go ahead and get started. Sorry about the delay there. Just want to make sure that everyone's loaded in. So, again, thank you for those that are joining this again. Here we are, for like the 8th time this year. We've got another threat that's on the way. That being said, there's a lot to the system that needs to be looked at, but again, that's why we're here. So what I'll do is I'm going to kind of go over, excuse me, the evolution of the storm, where it started model-wise and why that's important. And then we're also going to get into where the storm is being modeled currently. And then the last piece I'll get into is why I think there are some factors that probably not to this weekend models will actually be able to figure out. So we'll go ahead and start off with the first image here. This is the Euro that was put out back on the 16th, so just a couple days ago. And why this is important is I want to show you, essentially where that bullseye was. And it was showing it here in western North Carolina, which is more typical with an inland storm, right? So something that where the low tracks across here and then makes its way up the Appalachia here into Pennsylvania. Now, I can tell you right now, right off the bat, that this was the only run that the Euro thought this was going to be a inland runner. Every run thereafter has been a coastal storm, right? The GFS, however, has had a tremendously hard time picking up on whether or not this system was going to be an inland or it's going to be coastal. It's been back and forth. It's pretty crazy. So that being said, keep that in mind as we go through this, because it's important to note that the GFS has been so erratic. So any runs that you guys have seen that involves the GFS right now, I can tell you it's not accurate. It's wobbling all over the place in terms of where it even expects the low to track. So that's something to note. So this is the first Euro run that I really piqued my interest, right, when it first hit. And then this is a more recent one. later the next day, see it puts that bullseye like right over, south to mid Virginia into northern Virginia. So, that piqued my interest. And then it windshield wipered again out west, this time increasing snow totals, right? So you see some areas here that are around that 20 to 25 range. And this is when things started getting really interesting in terms of the Euro runs. But if you've noticed, and I don't know if, I don't even have the image up. Sorry, guys. A little sloppy. But here's the latest run, right? And it looks significantly less, right? So everyone was thinking, the storm's going away. It's going to be more rain. It's going to be less snow. This is why I think that's not the case, though. I think what's going on right now is the European is having a hard time, GFS much harder time, but the European is having a hard time understanding how quickly this cold air is going to move into the area. And a lot like our blizzard that we had and a lot like the last snow we had, there is a system that is going to be moving into the area or just north of us right before this event starts on Tuesday. And we'll see the system move through this like precursor of the system on late Sunday into Monday. So we'll get into that and why that's important. But again, I think the European has the right idea, right? It knows, okay, this is going to be a coastal storm, right? It's not going to move inland or be an inland runner. It's going to be a coastal storm. That's pretty much the consensus amongst the ensembles. And I'm going to show that to you here real quick in just a second. Tiny image. Oh, I'm sorry. This is actually the wrong image. Let me bring it up here. And you can see here the cluster of low pressure centers. Again, we're starting to see consensus that this will be a coastal storm. Now, the question is, when is that low going to form, and will it be before the cold air gets here? And also, will it be further north where it will be more of snow for our northern friends, or will it be further south off the coast of North Carolina, Virginia Beach area, where it will be more of a mid-Atlantic storm? That's yet to be seen. That is yet to be seen. But the European is very adamant that this will be a mid-Atlantic storm. And I think that's something to really consider, because if it were saying something else, if it were doing a broad sweep of, from central Virginia all the way up to like Boston, then I would lean towards the idea that the Northeast is going to get more snow. But as we've seen this year, New England hasn't done that well snow-wise this year because of the way storms have tracked. And I think that's important to note. So again, these clusters are starting to show up, and they're starting to center themselves right off the coast of North Carolina, Virginia, again, which leads to the idea of a coastal storm. So the reason I keep repeating it's a coastal, not an inland, is because the last system that busted on us, essentially, when we only got like 2 inches of snow and then it melted, like someone put a blowtorch to it after it fell, that's because that was an inland storm, and we never got the cold air we were supposed to with that initial cutter, and it fizzled out for us. So move on to the next image. Temperatures. Let's talk about that for a second. So this is a boundary line. This is a very important image. So if you're wondering whether it's going to be rain, excuse me, if you're wondering whether it's going to be rain, if you're wondering whether it's going to be snow, this image is essentially key to understanding where that rain-snow line is going to be. And the European so far has been spot on with where they think that rain-snow line is going to be. And this is from the Euro. And you can see anything in white here, this is going to be below freezing or right at freezing. Anything here will be above freezing. And if you look historically when we get snow, this is kind of the gradient that you see. you know, the I-95 snow line, which is very common for anyone in Virginia, that's what you're looking at right here. If you're on the east side of I-95, you're used to it. You're going to get rain. But if you are on the western side of I-95, and the further up in elevation that you go, the further west, that's where I think the more significant snows are going to be. So the notion that this is going to be rain, I get it. You know, there's a lot of people that really rely on their AccuWeather, weather.com apps. I'm telling you, people, that data is about 72 to 48 hours old, depending upon how often that automated system refreshes it. In every single run that the Euro has done, it has gotten colder. Now today, it kind of waffled a little bit. Didn't go colder necessarily, didn't go warmer, but it kind of stopped that cold trend and kind of stayed right below the freezing mark. So the data that you get on these applications on AccuWeather and weather.com, it's based on old data. So as that newer data from today's runs and other days starts to filter through, then you'll start to see those temperatures that were 45 degrees for Tuesday and Wednesday start going down to the mid 30s and lower. So that's an important thing to note for this. The next thing I'm going to bring up, and well, you know what? I thought this is a different image. That is not one you need to see it. Okay, so let me go over here to the GFS and why I mentioned earlier that there is a system that could assist us with cold air. And I'm going to show you guys that. So here we are tomorrow, right? So late tomorrow. Not much going on. We got a high pressure center. That's why it's a little chilly, like, you know, not quite warm yet like everybody was hoping, but you'll see, watch these red lines here, that will start to change. So then we start to warm up right in this area, and I'll get a little bit closer. The image won't really help out. Okay, there we go. So again, get a little bit warmer, and that high pressure sits over, so it's going to be nice and sunny late Friday, Saturday. And then that high pressure center starts to move off the coast. But notice this up here, right? This is an important thing to note. This system cuts right across, and with it starts to bring a little cold air a little bit further down into, you know, upstate New York, into New England. But there's another system right here, right? It's low. Watch where it tracks. It tracks right across the U.S., right over Virginia. So it's saying that we're going to get rain on Monday. Now here's what I can tell you. Remember I was telling you before not to trust the GFS because it's been wonky? Well, it's got this track all wrong. It's got this track completely wrong. And matter of fact, this track is actually going to be further north. And that's very significant because it shows up on the Euro, which I can't exactly show you as clear with the Euro model, so I want to show you here. So just pretend this low is up here. When this low pressure center makes its way across, you see this high pressure that's sitting up over here? It's essentially going to drag the cold air as the low moves across northern Pennsylvania and New York and makes its way out. And what do you see here? You see that cold air begin to dip down, right? Now you see these blue lines that are right here. They start to dip down into Ohio Valley, into Northern Virginia, Mid-Atlantic. So the reason, and you'll see that the GFS isn't impressed with the system, is because it believes that the system that moves through is only going to be trailing warm air with it from the Central Plains, from the south across central Virginia. But that's not where that low is going to track. It's actually going to track, like I said, up here where that colder air is. And the best way to kind of describe this effect is it's going to open a gateway for colder air on the back end of that storm, where it will be going, again, tracking through cold air, and it will make its way further into Virginia than the GFS is projecting. And this has been a consistent issue with the GFS all winter, all summer, really, in many different cases. But this is a perfect example of it getting a component of this complicated system that's headed this way very wrong. And when that energy makes its way south, these cold temperatures, they're going to make their way in sometime on Tuesday before the onset of the precipitation. So I don't know if I necessarily buy the idea of a rain to snow scenario like I know a lot of meteorologists out there have done. Me being an amateur, I look at it and I say, well, if it's not reading this part of the storm correctly, that front end energy that's going to track across, and it's actually going to be further north, we need to consider the idea that it's off on its temperatures. The GFS is, but as I showed before, the Euro is not. The Euro has a very good idea where that boundary is going to be. So, again, we can't take this image verbatim. Excuse me, not that image. We can't take this image verbatim. The last run. It's still trying to figure out how much moisture is in the storm. So that whole windshield wiper effect, right, that I was telling you, where one day it's over here to the west, the next day it's on the east, right? That's going to happen this whole weekend, right? Stuff's going to get shared on social media, and people are like, oh man, we're going to get slammed, and then next day they're like, oh, actually, no, it says 2 inches. We're going to continue to get that windshield wiper effect. But, again, I'll say this time and time again. When you look at these images, what you want to basically get an idea of is where is it going to fall after it's done with the windshield wipering, with finding that bullseye. Where is the center going to lie? And if you look at this image back and forth, and then you look at the most recent one, although the precip is very down here, it's somewhere in this area, right? It's somewhere in that area. Historically speaking, when we get major coastal storms, Northern Virginia, for the mid-Atlantic, okay, I'm not speaking for the northern states, but with coastal storms, the mid-Atlantic areas in particular, Northern Virginia into Westminster, Maryland area is the epicenter. It usually almost always is. That's just how our climate has decided where the majority of precipitation will lie. And in this particular setup, where the Euro is saying there's going to be plenty of cold air to help with the rates of snow, historically speaking, those epicenters are going to be right in the Northern Virginia area. So I don't necessarily believe this as much that I would, say this run here. Actually, not even so much that run. The run here, apologize, there we go. The run here is a little too amped, a little too juiced, but this is more believable than any of them. So it'll be interesting to see where that windshield wipering will stop. But it's in my estimation right now that we need to get ready for some type of snow. And as far as the accumulations are concerned, we will see that pan out as we find out where that low tracks. And then the last thing we'll go over real quick before we go to questions and whatnot will be the precipitation and where it lies for the storm. Give me just a second here. Here we go. I'm going to bring up the U.S. map because I want you to be able to see this. So here we are. Here's that high pressure center I was telling you about. Look at this low. Remember where the GFS said that low was going to be? Like down in here? Look where the Euro has it. It's further north where the cold air is. That's important. So take a look at this. As it tracks across, and then we get this beautiful weather down here. Up north they're a little crappier. It's going to help dip down this cold air, watch these wave bars here make their way south. There. Now, the GFS, this dotted line you see, that's the freezing line, okay? The GFS does not believe that this cold air will get there that quickly. The Euro is the only model saying that, and it's handling the storm much better. But look at this low down here. It's just feeding off the Gulf, and you can see that, right? You can see these bands of storms popping up. People that live down in southern Texas, they're very used to this with coastals across Mississippi, Louisiana, into southern Alabama. They're very used to this, and they, you know, this is a track that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to get across. It makes its way offshore, and then look where the low is, right between that North Carolina South Carolina border, and look where that freezing line is, right? So maybe the onset we get some rain, but if you continue to watch, look at the last frame I just barely skipped there. That is just a QPF bomb of cold air. I'm sorry, a QPF bomb of moisture with cold air. So there you have it, guys. The European is saying, look, there's going to be a lot of moisture. I just don't know where that epicenter is going to be. Also, take note, this is late night Thursday, right? So as far as timing is concerned, this is going to be more of a Wednesday into Thursday event, just so you guys know. Tuesday, I don't think there's going to be much on that front end energy. It's going to be more of a Wednesday into Thursday event. And there you have it. So, again, lots to look at. Hopefully it wasn't too much, but I do want to get and dig into these as much as I can, so that you guys get the full spectrum of what I look at every day. And this is just part of it. There are a few other things that I do as well, but this is the meat and potatoes of it for sure. And what I'll do now is I'll leave it open for questioning. Okay, so everybody hears. Jeffrey King asked, for the last few storms, which model has been more accurate, Euro or GFS? Euro has most certainly been the most accurate. Most certainly. So with the blizzard, the GFS sniffed it out early. The Euro handled the tail end of the storm the best, although it waffled a lot in the middle. I remember going over that, but it didn't handle the low very well. But overall, scoring-wise, the Euro has been better. Oh, I almost forgot. And again, you can continue with the questions and whatnot as you guys come up with them. But there was one more thing I wanted to show you, and this is a little bit more future thinking here, not so much this event. This is later on, but I think it's significant. The image earlier that I didn't want any of you to see. So if you look here, this is really maximized. Okay, so this is a high pressure center sitting right over, southern Canada. This is a really cold signature that is leading into the beginning of March. So if any of you were hoping that after this event it's kind of like, okay, we're heading into warmer weather, think again, because we've got another seasonal outlook here. that this will open. Oh gosh, why are these so zoomed in? Here we go, back out a little bit. Here we are. This is the outlook for March. Day 11 through 50. So this is about March 10th. Look at that. Colder than usual temperatures. And a ideal high to low setup that would possibly generate some storms as well. So, yeah, the groundhog glide. There's no shortened winter this year, and it's been a trend. Past few Marches, it's been very, very cold, and we've gotten quite a bit of snow as well. So Cassie asks, when do you think the models will get a good grasp on this? Topper this morning already called for an all-rain event. Well, to be honest, Cassie, the Euro does have a good handle on it. It knows it's going to be a coastal. It knows that the temperatures are going to be lower than stated than GFS, which I would definitely trust it right now more than GFS. And it has an idea about how much moisture it's going to bring. And it makes more sense in terms of the United States map I showed, as far as how the system will develop down near the Gulf and bring up the moisture and then blow up off the coast and come up. It has a better idea. So the Euro has a grasp on it. Now, I know Topper. I don't know him personally. I know of him, of course. He's actually an excellent meteorologist, but I have to disagree with him on this. I don't think right now anyone can say that this is an all-snow event. I mean, if we go back and look at the European, right, and I'm going to show you exactly what I look at, right? This is not like some trick or anything. But if you go here to run total grid values, which shows you the total amounts of snow that's expected to fall, go Sunday into Monday into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, there's snow showing up. How much, we're not really sure yet. But to say it's going to be an all-rain event, I just don't agree with that. Okay, and then Blanca Torres asks, timing is Wednesday into Thursday. Do you think enough snow will accumulate to affect schools on Thursday? I think there might be enough Wednesday to affect schools, just the threat of the storm, right? And I think as we get closer, models, particularly GFS, are going to trend colder, and I think the threat of it will be enough for Wednesday. Into Thursday, I'm not sure. All depends on the tail end of the storm, whether or not we stay all snow or turn to rain like we did the last event. But yeah, so guys, one thing I do want to cover here with systems, because I think this is something that I get asked a lot or stated a lot, and I think people need to kind of be more aware of, if they're not already, is when large systems like this move into an area, it affects weather for hundreds and hundreds of miles, right? Sometimes 1,000 or more miles. When a system like this makes its way up the coast, it can influence cold air wherever it moves into, right? So basic meteorology, low pressures move towards high pressure centers, right? That's what, where the winds move, that's where jet streams not jet streams, but that's where kind of winds and streams of air flow. The reason for that is they interact with one another. So when a very strong low pressure center makes its way into an area that's anywhere near a high pressure center, it can bring in cold air. So despite what people might say as far as temperatures are concerned, 5-7 days out, don't trust your phone apps for that. That's for sure. Model data is dated on those, and these big time events can bring in that cold air. Well, just make sure one more time to see if there's any questions. If not, again, if you missed something or maybe you thought of something after, shoot me a message. Be more than happy to help you out with that. And yes, Cassie, I agree. The groundhog was drunk when he popped up and didn't go back in his hole. Such a funny tradition. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you all very much. You guys have a great evening. If you have any questions for me, please shoot them my way. I'm going to do another update on this on Saturday, so you won't see any posts from me tomorrow. And again, it will be a post. It will not be a Zcast Live. I might do one of those on Sunday, depending upon the situation. So just kind of tab that for your planning purposes for Sunday if you want to watch. Thank you guys very much. You all have a great night.